Wagwan my people, you join me in lovely Dubai because it's always, you know, raining and 9 degrees in Dubai. 1 year anniversary, how cute, let's go! To tell you the truth, I can't really believe I've already had this car for a year. The last year it's kind of just flown by. A huge upgrade compared to my other cars that I've had in the past. And today I just want to talk about the good, bad and the ugly. I'd say it's been mostly sunshine and rainbows with this car, but that doesn't mean that there hasn't been a few problems. And I kind of want to give my 2 cents on whether you should pick up a car like this. There's quite a stigma around Porsche ownership, I think, because people see it's like a German exclusive brand, you know, that if they buy a car like this, you know, there's going to be like reliability problems. There's going to be a car that drinks fuel when you need to service it. It's going to be very expensive. So I kind of want to just talk about some of those stigmas and some of those false perceptions, because it's not always like that. There is a few stereotypes that are true. Anyway, let's get on the road. This is going to be an interesting one. Anyway, I want to talk a bit at first about owning a Porsche. What's that like? And I want to talk more about the money side of it, because I think this is going to be something which, if you're looking at buying the car, is going to be quite important. I think I'm probably in the minority of people that are buying 987s and then dailying them. I think a lot of people who are looking at these cars are probably going to buy them as a weekend toy, etc, etc. Going to go and do a move on this guy. Yeah, So in terms of how much I've spent over the course of the last year at the shop, that figure is only £1,500 or thereabouts. Majority of that has been on servicing. It's been on things like bushes. What I will say, so I've got to do the rear tyres still. It's something I've been putting off just because I haven't got the money to do it at the moment. But my rear tyres do need changing. That's going to be another £300. And insurance is due in not too long either. I believe my insurance is due at the end of the month, actually. So I think that's going to be around about £700 to £800. So, you know, I don't think those are catastrophic prices, considering I am 24, turning 25 next week, actually. You know, for a 25-year-old to be insuring any Porsche, you know, for 700 quid, I think that's a pretty decent amount. I've got a completely clean license, but I think that should put in perspective to you guys, like, how inexpensive these cars can be. If you're a bit older, those prices are only going to come down. You know, not to mention it's going to be about 300 to tax. Overall, in the first year of me owning this car, I've spent way less in comparison to how much I spent on the Renault Clio I had last year. And if you put that in perspective, I mean, that is just crazy. Now, that's not to say there isn't a few weird things that I've picked up. So when I did buy the car, my shifter felt awfully sloppy. I've not had a chance to fix that because it's quite an expensive fix. You're looking at about £700–800. I've had a few suspension niggles. I did actually take this car to Boomtown last year, which is, for those that don't know, it's a festival in the UK, electronic music festival. And I did start to get some weird knocks after I took it off-road at Boomtown, and those have not really happened since. Like, you know, the kind of knocks have kind of just stopped. Whoa. So earlier on, I did mention this is my daily. You know, I use it to commute to work. You know, I've taken this car all the way down to Brighton. I live in the West Midlands, but I've taken this car all the way down to Brighton for film shoots. That's what I do as a profession. So, you know, I've packed this car up with a bunch of film gear, lighting equipment, cameras, and it basically could fit all of it in the car, which is crazy. So I've given you guys a bit of background on the cars I've owned previously. This interior is the oodles and noodles above I've got an Apple CarPlay unit in my car that was already installed when I bought it, but I tell you what, it brings the whole interior back up to life. And even now, I think it still stands with a lot of modern interiors. And obviously the interior is where you're going to spend most of your time, right? So like having it be a place that makes you feel just so it's nice and cozy in here. It doesn't feel low rent, it doesn't feel outdated. I think the only complaints I have with the actual interior itself are probably the seats. These are not the Sports Plus seats. If you're looking for a Cayman, look for the Sports Plus seats. These ones in your shoulders don't really hold you in as much, but they are comfy. Makes a huge difference to owning a sports car when it can almost cross over into kind of like a GT aspect as well. Because I definitely feel like this car does have heavy GT credentials as well as, you know, the sports car credentials. And I think, you know, with that being said, we have to talk about the driving experience. But let's talk about the steering. So this is one of Porsche's last hydraulic steering racks. I have used some of their electric ones very briefly, but you know, this hydraulic rack speaks to you telepathically. There's so much feel I can get from the road. If you're coming from an e-pass system, it's gonna feel night and day. Now, if you've driven things, you know, like, you know, older Porsches, maybe like 993s or some of the more hardcore Porsche products like GT cars, then maybe you'll be able to poke holes in it. But for me, as someone who, you know, this is my first introduction to Porsche as a brand. I've driven some of their cars, but not really kind of religiously like that. This is my first one I've owned. If you're coming in at that perspective as someone who's never really owned a Porsche, you know, this steering, it's going to blow you out of the park. Yeah, the steering, although it's very detailed, it's never tiring. There is enough assistance to the point where you're never ever going to be really knackered from a drive unless you're going really hard. Same for the ride, very compliant. It's a little bit on the softer side. I imagine the S is probably a lot stiffer. And I think that leads us up to my kind of final point, really, which is value for money. I bought this car for around £12,000. Bought this just as we were coming out of COVID a year ago. You know, prices from cars have gone down in the UK since then. But you know, for 12k, what can you get? So you can get a 370Z or a 350Z. Both cars, they've got a little bit more power, but probably a lot less more fuel. I can't imagine it's anywhere near as direct as this car is. An MX-5, but then with that being said, an MX-5's interior, is that going to be as nice as this? The ND MX-5 interiors are nice, and the NC I had was alright, it wasn't great. You can get pretty nicely spec'd and conditioned Caymans for the same amount of money, so would you really want an MX-5 over one of these? And then you've got the S2K, you know, unreal, probably the most direct car of the lot I've mentioned so far, but doesn't really have that daily driver qualities. You know, the ride is a lot louder. My mate Hayden recently bought a red one. Go follow him on Instagram. And yeah, you know, I love the car, but as a daily, I just don't think it would be possible. The car's way too loud inside. There's not enough space. This car is so practical. You've got the front, you've got the rear boot, behind the seats. There's lots of space in this car. I told you, I took all my camera equipment down 300-mile journey down to the sea, and it fit in here no problem, as well as carrying a passenger that we took to the shoot. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and find somewhere to stop over so we can go ahead and just conclude this video. So to conclude this video, I think like there's a lot of stigma around like Porsche ownership and how much it really is. Like, it's not as cheap, say, as an MX-5 would be, but for cost per mile, you compare it to some super saloons like M3s, M4s, even S3s, RS3s, those kind of things. This just offers way more as a driver's experience. I truly believe that this is one of the biggest used car bargains you can get right now. Anyway, thanks for watching this video. If you have any questions about this car, if you're looking at this car, make sure to go ahead and leave some comments down below. I'll reply and answer to all of them. We've got another video coming very soon in this car, a very special one, so keep an eye out for that. As soon as I have those rear tyres changed, that's going to be the first thing I record. So yeah, keep an eye out for that one. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. Stay safe.